From roughly 1760 to 1840, the global economy underwent a severe mechanical pivot. Humans stopped relying on handcrafted goods, and manufacturing shifted to machinery. The foundation of this new economy rested on a continuous feedback loop between three critical resources: steam, iron, and coal. They fed into one another, building the base of the modern capitalist world. The era functioned as a tight chain reaction. Every new machine created a production bottleneck elsewhere, forcing a mechanical breakthrough to solve it. Mastering coal, iron, and steam solved immediate crises of human survival. As a result, population and revenue metrics began a constant upward trajectory that continues today. Earlier in the 18th century, lucrative overseas trade made Britain wealthy. The population on the British Isles multiplied so quickly that the country faced a shortage of wood and cloth. People replaced wood with coal for basic survival needs, using it to cook, heat their homes, and fire their blacksmithing forges. This created a new bottleneck. Surface-level coal was quickly exhausted. Miners were forced deep underground, where these new shafts constantly flooded with groundwater. With the national fuel source trapped under millions of gallons of water, engineers had to find a way to pump the mines dry. That specific necessity led to the development of artificial steam power. Shifting to coal had secondary effects. Mining coal required less physical labor than chopping down forests and converting that wood into charcoal, which triggered an expansion in the metal industries. In 1709, Abraham Darby successfully fueled his blast furnaces with coke, a purified form of coal. This removed impurities and resulted in cast iron that was cheaper and produced in large quantities. By 1778, this cheap cast iron was structurally viable enough for large-scale architecture, as seen in the construction of this bridge spanning the Severn River. To refine this material further, Henry Cort introduced the puddling process. Human laborers manually stirred pools of molten iron with long rods to oxidize and remove impurities. It was a grueling, deadly job, but it increased production speeds. The volume of cheap, mass-produced iron gave engineers the raw material they needed to forge the heavy-duty steam machines of the coming decades. Meanwhile, Britain's population demanded more clothing. As trade expanded into Egypt and India, new cotton imports overwhelmed traditional hand spinners, who could no longer keep up with the supply. To fix this bottleneck, inventors developed a rapid succession of mechanical solutions, moving from the spinning jenny to the water frame and the power loom. The labor force reacted with fear. Mobs of weavers physically attacked inventors and burned these early machines to the ground to protect their livelihoods. This chart shows the impact of mechanization. In 1770, British spinners processed 8 million pounds of cotton. By 1850, that volume reached 250 million pounds. Despite resistance, the scale of mass production moved labor out of residential homes and centralized it into factories. Those early factories relied on water wheels, but the flooded coal mines were driving innovation forward. To pump water out of the deep pits, Thomas Newcomen built a massive rudimentary piston engine in 1712. In the 1770s, James Watt introduced a critical enhancement, a separate condenser chamber. This retained heat within the cylinder and cut the amount of coal required to run the machine. By 1800, Watt and his partner Matthew Boulton had adapted the machine into a rotative engine. Now steam could turn the gears inside a mill or factory. Because of steam power, textile mills and iron forges were no longer tied to fast-moving rivers. Industrialization could spread anywhere. Building these advanced engines exposed a mechanical bottleneck. Early steam engine cylinders could not be accurately shaped using hand tools like files and hammers. Specialized machine tools solved the problem. Cylinder boring machines and the slide rest lathe allowed workers to perfectly cut metal screws and parts, introducing the concept of interchangeable components. Chemistry had to catch up as well. To process millions of pounds of cotton, inventors developed industrial-scale production of sodium carbonate and sulfuric acid, reducing fabric bleaching times from months to days. Mass production required precision in metalworking and a mastery over chemical reactions, not just mechanical force. Manufacturing bled into every corner of society. Gaslighting was introduced to London between 1812 and 1820, extending working hours. Specialized machines began mass-producing continuous sheets of paper. But generating immense quantities of goods was useless if they couldn't be moved cheaply and rapidly. Britain initiated an infrastructure explosion to solve the transportation bottleneck. Turnpike trusts engineered road networks. Vast canals were dug into the landscape. And by 1825, the first public steam railways began operating. Railways and canals formed the arteries of the new economy, accelerating the movement of goods, people, and engineering ideas. The decline of the home-based cottage industry carried a severe human cost. Unable to compete with machines, entire families accepted poorly paid factory labor to survive. While factory owners built beautiful estates, their laborers were crowded into dark, unhygienic rooms, often sleeping on sawdust in cramped brick-paved alleys. These conditions triggered health crises. Waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid tore through these neighborhoods, and life expectancy for many dropped to 35 years. While national GDP and gross production reached historical highs, the immediate standard of living for the working masses declined. The British model spread through Europe. Belgium adopted the machinery so closely it was called miniature England, while Germany invested in universities to become a chemical dye powerhouse. America leveraged the cotton gin and stolen British factory designs. Men like Samuel Slater broke emigration laws to smuggle engineering skills to New England, establishing vast water-powered mills. In 1870, Japan initiated a state-sponsored catch-up. Through the Iwakura mission, the government sent students abroad to study Western technology, returning to build a dominant mechanized silk and cotton industry. Industrialization became a global arms race for economic supremacy. Nations that modernized their manufacturing dictated the terms of global trade. This era entrenched the systems of modern capitalism, prioritizing mass production and the private ownership of factory facilities. Observing this division of wealth, Karl Marx formulated socialism as a direct reaction. He framed the era as a conflict between the bourgeoisie, who owned the factories, and the proletariat laborers who performed the work. Historians still debate the exact start, end, and pacing of the Industrial Revolution today. The anxiety of the era remains relevant. The hand weaver staring at an automated loom in the 1780s faced the same uncertainty as a modern worker facing artificial intelligence today. We boarded a runaway train of progress over 2 centuries ago, and today we are still riding that very same train.